Hello, friends. This is Dave Horowitz, executive editor at ClassicsToday.com, here with reference recordings. And today we're talking about, well, this one's going to be a challenge, Scarlatti Sonatas. How can you have a reference recording for Scarlatti Sonatas? He wrote 555 of them. There is, of course, a massive reference edition for all of them. You know what it is. We can talk about it later. Maybe we'll save it because we already called it one of the most important recording projects ever. So let's leave that aside. And more to the point, the complete Scarlatti Sonatas did not exist at a time when it was possible to come to a general consensus about individual performances of individual works or groups of works, because, you're not going to talk about one sonata. We're talking about albums. So if you're interested in Scarlatti at the time when most of these reference recordings were being decided upon, which is the 1950s, 60s, and early 70s, in that region, what was the reference for Scarlatti Sonatas? Well, maybe this won't come as a surprise to some of you. It's Vladimir Horowitz. Because what Scarlatti needed in order to have a reference recording, first of all, was the advocacy of a major artist. And Horowitz was certainly that. That's number one. And second of all, he needed to have the advocacy regularly repeated, regularly emphasized, regularly stressed to the public at large, and recorded and issued. And it had to be fairly proprietary, I would think, because you see, Scarlatti was not seen for most of his career in the rest of the world as the, keyboard giant and, Baroque genius that he was. Nowadays you can say Bach, Handel, Scarlatti, and no one's going to laugh at you. They won't. But if you did that in 1955 or 1965, when Glenn Gould had just shown that the Goldberg variations can indeed be played on the piano, and you said, oh, well, Scarlatti's as good as Bach, people would look at you like you were insane. So there had to be something also to make the music as significant enough to be worthy of having a reference, to having something to refer to pay attention to, for you to care about it enough to want there to be a reference recording. And that aspect was provided by Horowitz himself. It was provided by, the aura that surrounded him as a musician. The idea was if it was good enough for Horowitz, then there must be something there. Now, there were always some people who did not take Horowitz terribly seriously as a major artist. As a piano technician, yes, but as a deep-thinking interpreter, well, not so much. And he did have a somewhat impish sense of humor, you might call it. There's the cat going crazy. An impish personality, and a high-strung sort of, neurotic persona. His retirement for 12 years and all of that stuff from the concert stage, and all of his angst, his relationship to Toscanini, and there was so much biographical stuff involved too, that it sometimes called into question his importance or seriousness as a major artist. But in Scarlatti, he found a composer who was just so right for him. Really, the incredible virtuosity, the quirky unpredictability of the music, the simplicity of form that doesn't require anyone to talk about, like development sections and things like that, the way that you have to with Beethoven sonatas. It was open territory. You didn't have heavy-duty German people telling you how it was supposed to go. Horowitz wasn't looked down upon because he was playing music that was sublime beyond his theoretical ability to sublimate, or any of those things. He had the field to himself, and he played the music as if it was written for the piano and written for him, usually as encores, for the most part, as little little jeux d'esprit. But although these might not have been the major elements or the major things on his live programs, he was able to issue it on recording. Now, there were recital records that had groups of Scarlatti sonatas and other Scarlatti things. But to devote an entire disc to this stuff, when everyone knew he was a master at it, everybody knew that he was your guy if you wanted to hear Scarlatti, really helped to put Scarlatti's music on the musical map. I mean, it really did. His advocacy meant a tremendous amount for the growth of admiration and respect for Scarlatti as a composer. And so not only is this the reference recording for Scarlatti Sonatas, it was for decades until, period instruments and harpsichords and all that stuff started happening. And by then, as I said, there was no more consensus to agree on a reference recording, which means this is still the reference recording. Not only was it, it remains the reference recording for Scarlatti Sonatas, at least on the piano. You have to concede that. Other people may be doing them on the harpsichord and doing them better in other ways. But in terms of an identification between the artist and the performer, wow, this is really special stuff. And it hasn't aged a second, not a minute. And I do want to make one other last point before we go. I mean, there are, on this album, this is a collection of his things from various recitals and other places. There are 18 sonatas here, 18 sonatas, plus 2 bonus sonatas, so 20 in all. In order for him to play these 20 sonatas, he had to have looked through all of the others, or most of the others, and selected. So we know that this is only a fraction of what he must have experienced in his decision about what he should and should not play by Scarlatti. And that's one of the things that makes the disc, I think, something that we should also take as seriously as I believe Horowitz did. So keep on listening, friends. Thanks for joining me, and take care.